All right, everyone, welcome. Today we have Ben Hannan versus Chris Hauck. Uh, Chris will be on Viscera, and Ben is on Oldham, Grandfather of Eternity.
Classic matchup in this meta.
Just a reminder, this is pre-bans, so we can expect to see a Skeleta for Viscera.
Yeah, remind me, when did the league say the bans would take effect? Was it next week?
Next week, yes. Primarily just because we have to turn our list, or not our list, but we choose our heroes on Sunday. So it was before the ban announcement.
Yeah, I think that was the right call. I think this match will be really interesting, especially to use as a litmus test for the meta after Scalata goes away. Because I know this is one of the matchups our local Viscerai players say they're most worried about with the Scalata shift. So while we're waiting for the setup here, as a Prism main, how do you feel about the bans?
Um, I'm not really sure yet. It'll really depend on how the meta shakes out, what comes to the table. I feel like there's a lot of aggro decks that Viscerai and Starvo have kept at bay. However, I don't feel like some of those aggro matchups are bad for Prism. Let's say Bolton, Dory come to mind. So it'll be interesting to really dig into this new meta, and
Yeah, I think the
especially with
Prism.
the
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, especially with the Pro Tour coming up. I mean, Ben and Michael Hamilton here in Indy, they have a lot on their plate to figure out really what the meta's gonna be, because that's how you choose a deck.
Yeah, I think Hamilton had more heroes not on his list of heroes he was looking at for the pro quest than were, or sorry, other way around.
So this will be an interesting match for sure. Viscerai usually takes the stance of OTK. And, you know, after the ban, it's going to be a little bit harder to do. Usually Viscerai is looking to get to the 12 plus rune chance and then use Skeletta and Arconix Sonata, or I said that wrong probably. Sonata Arconix, yeah. To really go off at the end of the game.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too because I know as an Oldham player myself, the first part of this matchup is always just trying to rush as much damage and disruption through as you can, and then the second half is really tight. So it'll be interested in seeing how this matchup shifts, because I definitely think one of Vizrai's big powers was being able to pivot between the OTK style, or if that isn't working, kind of dumping off and pushing more towards an aggro.
For sure. Oldham didn't come out of the ban unscathed either. They did lose Awakening, which is a huge catch-up mechanic in the Guardian decks that can run it.
That, and I definitely think you can't underestimate the loss of the Autumn's touch. It was a card that was very rarely actually played physically in the deck. Mainly, it was used to pitch for the D react and just to have a solid three blocker. And I think we're really seeing LSS. They did a good job of making a lot of their elemental cards two blocks, and I feel Oldham's going to feel that more than ever.
All right, so we're getting a die roll there. I don't know. They probably did evens odds. And there's another indie staple there, the stalagmite for Ben.
Yeah, definitely a big shift in the meta since the calling. A lot of us are shifting over to the stalagmite in most matchups these days. Definitely just the pure power of how easily it can disrupt your turn and making your opponent play around it definitely plays into Oldham's style of making your opponent have to really think twice about their lines.
All right, so Ben got the go first. He just picked up his tunic and arsenal, passing into his opponents, who just revealed a Rattlebones. Don't think he meant to do that.
always found this first move in this matchup interesting because this is really Viserai's last chance to push some damage through before they kind of start turtling up and start building up those rune chants. So
Yeah,
it's
it
going to be
looks
interesting to
like
see what they throw out.
he might have had a hand of red, so he's just gonna create a rune chant using the grasp. Oh, he did have. His hand was all red, so okay.
That being said, while that is a little rough, getting that rattle bones and um, the revel for a possible late game might be good. Though I guess never mind, that's not a thing because they're gonna shuffle the deck with the Sonata. So
Oh, for sure. But the amount of rune chants he can generate off of what he just played is pretty decent.
yeah,
Oh,
getting that aura out early is very helpful. And now with the classic zealous into either a hammer or hopefully a even bigger attack.
for sure. We got one floating for Ben. Zealous Belting coming in for 5.
That card's really seen a lot of play since Arya for Guardian, really helping them pick up on their tempo and push that aggro.
Yeah, and even towards the end part of Monarch, Zealous Belting definitely helped improve Bravo's odds against decks like Prism.
Yeah, before the new auras for Prism, it actually was almost a manageable matchup. Though it did take you having to side in 12 different cards for the Prism matchup. But I know me at least, I was on 12 or sorry 6 Zealous Beltings, the red and the yellows.
Yeah, it was a lot easier when there were half as many auras. All right, so Viserai's taking the 35, going down to 35. Looks like we're going to get another attack from hand. I'm getting word that your mic is not very loud. Let me check some settings.
Oh, Ben taking advantage of pre-ban list also, letting Autumn's touch out to play. It really is something underappreciated about that card too. It doesn't do anything flashy, but it just being there for the fuse, being a decent attack you can throw when you just need push damage. This turn isn't really all that flashy, but I think that's a yellow right there, no red. So that's 11 damage shoved through on this turn, or sorry, 12. Really, the key to this matchup for the Oldhim player is just trying to push as much pressure on the Viserai player as you can, and really your goal is hopefully making them have to go off with the Sonata before they feel comfortable doing so.
Getting a
Ooh, it looks like it's
whiff.
gonna be a whiff. Interesting. He's actually attacking out.
Hmm. Seems like a very unusual play on a Viserai's part.
Though I think I can see the logic here because he started the turn with 2, he's ending it with 1, but he's pushing through not a lot of damage, but an okay amount. I think trading the 6 damage then? Let's see, 6 damage for like 1 turn delay or really a 2 turn delay on everything. I think might be worth it here. And there we go. Now with him coming in with the swarm, he's effectively only behind 1 turn on his game plan. He's pushed through 10 damage or threatened 10 damage.
Correct. And with this, he's also going to have Rosetta available to push through an extra 4.
Oh yeah, so that's actually a pretty solid turn. That's let's see there. 14 damage?
Seems pretty good.
Well, this really does show that like even without the Skeleton. Viserai still got a lot of play here. He only started the turn with two rune chants, and even with him whiffing on the Sonata, he was able to put together a lot of damage on the board.
Oh, for sure. And now he's bringing the Oaken out to defend. That's a great defending card, but it's a much better attacking card.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what he has in his hand, or if he's really just planning on taking that all up.
All right, so here comes the Rosetta for 1, 2, and 2. Ben down to 35, Chris at 29.
And this isn't a horrible spot for Chris either. Then, while he is behind a little bit, he's still going to get that free rune chant off of his aura, and he's basically kind of reset the board state. Like, he knows that Ben's not going to be able to throw anything too crazy off a 2-card hand.
Oh, absolutely. And so we're going to see a typical Oldham play here. We're going to see a Winter's Wail with a threatening a Frostbite. And then we're going to get the Arsenal because Ben has Tunic online. That's a really good lineup for Crown of Seeds.
Well, yeah, and as we learned with Starvo, just the ability of Crown of Seeds to, when you have a disappointing hand, dig into the deck just a little bit more for another card is just huge.
Oh, absolutely. And not to mention, negating 1 damage turn after turn after turn really adds up in this game.
Oh, yeah. Especially in the format now where it's so heavy on 4 attacks, it can really help make some awkward blocks manageable.
It definitely does a good job of shifting those breakpoints. All right, so we're back to Chris now.
I wonder if Ben has another Oaken for that Arsenal there, considering what he pitched and what was available.
Possibly. Digging to get that fused Oaken off isn't a bad thing. That's a second Revel.
Especially in this matchup, if he's on the OTK game plan, you don't have to worry about using your crown to defend for a good number of turns, so you can kind of use it to help dig.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not really seeing anything that screams OTK to me on the Viserai side. We're not at a relatively high rune chant count.
Yeah, we haven't seen any defensive reactions yet.
And he's just pouring on the attacks.
Well, and I'll say from when I was at the calling, that was one of the more difficult parts of this matchup, was telling if they were going to be on the OTK track or if they were just going straight aggro.
So we've got 1 rune chant coming in, and then a Spellblade Assault for 2, creating 2 rune chants on the back there.
Actually, one thing to think of, that the Gorgonian Tome might actually be a hint that this might not be the OTK strategy he's going for, because don't they normally avoid that in this deck since it doesn't block?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask TK. We're going to get a Channel Lake and then a Hammer. Might be one of the last times that Ben gets to play or pitch Autumn's Touch for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's one thing we've been talking about is which 2-block Earth card are we going to swap with? I know there's even been some whispers among the old hymns of just going straight ice.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, especially since in the Blitz season we saw a lot of use of Endless Winter, and there's some old hymn players talking about possibly bringing that out from the bench and trying it out in CC again.
Be a really interesting deck list. I'd be interested in playing against that.
Especially with all the new ice toys we're going to be getting in Uprising.
All right, so Chris is deciding how he wants to attempt to block this, if he wants to block it at all. He's at a 10 life deficit here. Ben's at 35. Chris is sitting at 25. So he's going to double block here for 5.
Part of me is wondering if he's shifting his game plan now again, because I know that's something I've seen also is where you'll push a little aggression to slow down your other opponent, and then kind of shift your tone, and then start building up those rune chants again. Because realistically, the lower your opponent's life, the lower the threshold is you need to hit to go off with the OTK turn.
Oh, absolutely. His willingness to block with a Revel there definitely might indicate that, because we've seen 2 Revels pitched early in the game, so he knows he'll get them back late game if he sees second cycle.
Yeah, though he has shuffled his deck already off the Sonata.
Oh, very true. All right, so we're going to see it rouse the Ancients.
This card is always fun in this matchup.
So we had a Thunderquake and a Cranial Crush in hand.
Rouse is always an interesting card. It very rarely will ever threaten any sort of on hit, but just the 7 damage with the go again is really hard to ignore.
Oh, for sure. All right, so I think you might be right. I think we're slipping into Viserai going, ooh, we
and
got a
there's
pommel.
the pummel. And that's why I said it's on hit almost never matters. A lot of people forget that the combo cards for Guardian, like Rouse and like Zealous Belting, can actually be pummeled also. So oftentimes a trick that Oldhim players will use is they will throw that card out, because most people will choose not to block that card expecting the on-hit on the second attack, and then they'll throw the pummel out early.
Oh, for sure. Now, Chris has 1 card in hand and a hammer coming in. It's a naked hammer. It doesn't threaten a frostbite, but it's just damage at this point. And he seems to be getting chipped away at here.
Yeah, Ben's doing a good job of keeping the pressure on, and while he did push back with some aggression, Ben did a really good job of stabilizing and keeping the pressure on.
I hope he puts that channel back in the discard pile.
Yeah, and really, again, just showing the power of Viserai here, where if he needs to pivot to aggro, he can pivot to aggro. If he needs to move over to the OTK strategy, he can do that in a pinch.
Yeah, for sure. We're already at 7 rune chants.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning earlier, Ben's really pressuring him. He might force him to go off before he's ready for it. That being said, he's also done a really good job of making sure not to use any of his armor. So even if Ben does come out with a very big turn, if he has the combo in his hand, he can probably preserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oldhim has some really devastating on-hit triggers, so it's always good to save back some armor to get past the breakpoints that Oldham's trying to push.
It was definitely one of the first things I noticed when I was really starting to grind to try to get better at this game, is that the higher end players just aggressively didn't use their armor if they didn't have to.
With that being said, it's also kind of bad to lose a game and then still have all your armor sitting there. I've seen that
I have
happen
seen
as
that
well.
before. Or or my favorite to see is when the husk gets popped.
Oh, for sure. All right, so we're seeing an Ice Quake. An Autumn's Touch.
So use the Tunic to play the Ice Quake into the Autumn's Touch.
So Autumn's Touch coming in for 6 here, threatening a Frostbite if it hits. And 7
Definitely.
being one of those. 7 would be a better breakpoint than 6, but yeah.
You can kind of get away with it into Runeblade, especially Viserai, because he's got a decent number of 2 blocks.
For sure. So we may see an equipment block here if he doesn't really want to get a Frostbite.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's got a low enough life that he really can't just take 6 on the Dominant. Oh,
Ooh.
And there's the Reduced Rune Chant. That card just does so much work in this playstyle, just stopping the damage, all the cost reduction from the rune chance and giving you another rune chant.
We see it become the Arc Knight.
And he removed an attack. I wonder if he's just going to go for it.
You think he's digging for Sonata here?
There's a possibility. I mean, his life is at a scary point. And Ben getting an off turn like that definitely gave him a window. That, or maybe he's just grabbing a Revel. I know that's a pretty well established line of play, or not Revel, but Wreath Runes.
Yeah, and then you have to wonder what he has in hand as well.
I mean, for all we know, he might have the Sonata in hand.
So we're seeing a Morgotide
Okay.
into a Rattlebones.
Or it looks
Read
like
the
that's
runes.
Reed.
Yeah.
Interesting move. I mean, it does get you, I think that's 7, right?
Yeah. So he's sitting at 16 rune chance now. You can be sure that he will be ready to go next turn.
And now the real variance of the deck does show up, where he shuffled his deck now, so he can't rely on pitch stacking. He's just got to draw into that Sonata.
Be interesting to see what Ben has in hand. This would be a great turn to put a crush effect on Viserai.
Okay, so he's going to start off by crowning.
Maybe that's an indication that he has Oaken in hand?
Yeah, he might be digging for the fuse. And that is definitely one of the real secret powers of Crown of Seeds, is the fact that you can crown away and still have the floating resources from the blue you pitched.
Oh, we're going to see an Lightning Strike.
Okay. Still doesn't preclude Oaken, because, 5 go again into just 7 damage when your opponent's at 16 isn't a bad move.
And Ben just trying to pressure and get the cards out of hand. That seems to be good there. So we're blocking for 4?
Or, I think 5.
Oh, yeah, 5. Sorry, Spellblade Assault is 3.
Oh, there's the Command and Conquer. Interesting. I wonder what he has in his hand. He was probably digging for a pummel.
Very well could be. Though there is no arsenal to threaten currently, but getting the last card out of his hand would be really good here.
Well, and I think also just the fact that you can't he can't reduce the rune on it is nice.
Generating lots more rune chance.
That's a lot of rune chance. Let's see, it looks like we're at 21. Oh yeah, 20. Yeah, I was off by 1. Yeah, that's a lot of rune chance. Interesting. Oh no. I think, as we put it locally, I think he may have gotten Urbied. Yeah, that is not. I mean, solid when you're expecting your opponent to hit the combo, but rough because now we know he's not going to be hitting those Oaken Olds.
Oh, for sure. But we'll see if Channel and possibly this Frostbite can add some disruption to Chris's side there.
Yeah, Channel's definitely not something he wants to see. And while he does have a lot of rune chance, he is relatively low on life, even with his armor.
Pulling 2 more cards out for the defense there.
And I'm thinking, by the fact that he's willing to block with those rather than equipment, I don't think he has the Sonata. Oh, in fact, he's always just going to pass. I wonder what that other card in his hand. Well, yeah, I guess he couldn't afford to really swing or anything. So that also isn't unheard of when Channel Lake's out, because I don't think you can really get away with your full Sonata combo with a Channel Lake on the field.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what he put in Arsenal. You'd have to assume it's a big combo piece, right?
Yeah. That might have actually been an unintentional tip. It may have been a Sonata. They just put into his arsenal and I thought of, oh wait, where's my other one? Or maybe it's Rattlebones.
Have to see what kind of pressure Ben can put back over there. We know that the Sonata comes down, it's gonna close this gap of life that we see.
Yeah, Ben's gonna have a really rough time with the Sonata at this point, because even with just the raw arcane damage.
He's deep in the tank trying to figure out how to apply some pressure. Maybe he's trying to figure out how to keep channel out as well.
Yeah, that could be a real challenge with Channel Lake and Oldham, because unless he's got an 8-for-6, like it's hard to find things to pitch the ice card to. That was one really good design decision LSS made that's really apparent when you're playing Guardian, whether it's you're playing Anathos or if you're playing Channel, is the fact that you can't pitch card and have to.
Alrighty, we're seeing a Spinal Crush come down.
Interesting. So I think there's something we can learn from his pitch there. The fact that he chose to pitch the Rouse when it looks like he probably had enough to activate the Rouse makes me think there might be a second swing coming in here. Or the pummel.
Yeah, I'm guessing that it's probably the pummel. There's no go again on Spinal Crush, and Oldham doesn't have a way to really give go again.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
In Starvo, you could assume there could be a blink or
something like that, yeah. And he's not taking any risks. He's blocking it all out.
I think we just Arsenal pummel here and move on, right?
Now the real question is did he have the pummel or was he faking him out?
A very good question. It's opportunities like that, though, where they block out and you don't get the value off pummel that you want, and you just Arsenal it for later. Just says, hey, opponent, eventually you will get pummeled.
It's not a question of if, but of when.
So Chris sitting at 21 rune chance, trying to set up this OTK turn. Ben just trying to apply pressure. He's going to dig with Crown. Two floating resources. So if that was a pummel, it's gone.
And that is one of the downsides of the way Crown ends up working. It's a lot harder to hold on to stuff in your arsenal and still utilize the Crown.
Very true.
One of the few drawbacks.
Very true.
Ooh. That's... Oh, the Endless
Winter fused.
And this is actually kind of brilliant into this deck, considering if he decides to fridge up with his equipment, he's still going to have to deal with all those frostbites.
Oh, for sure. Of course, if all he wants to do is block, really no downside.
Yeah. Well, that being said, if he gets hit also, considering how often you'll activate abilities during the combo turn, that could hurt too. And really, this is the sort of thing that Ben does need right now. Is he needs to make sure his threats are all threatening some sort of decent on hit, just to make sure that his opponent isn't willing to just take it on the face.
Almost feels like a game of solitaire at this point for Ben as he keeps stripping the opponent's cards and his opponent just passing.
Yeah, it's like one of those like machines that opens the box and then closes the box.
All right, winner's bite. Target hero discards unless they pay 1.
Excellent card late game for him to use against Viserai.
He will pay 1.
Interesting.
Kind of signals to me that there's no Sonata in his hand or an Arsenal.
Yeah, because you definitely want to hold on to that if you're expecting a big Sonata explosion.
Oh yeah, seeing an extra 2 cards for free.
That and Lightning Strike it really does a lot of work in this deck. Especially in this matchup, really speeding up the normally slow Oldhim deck to try to race some damage through.
Chris deciding how to block this. He knows he's going to have at least one more attack coming. Block 3, take 2. And pitching Pulse for Winter's Wail, threatening 4 damage here. And a Frostbite.
It looks like he's going to take that Frostbite.
Kind of seems strange to me that he wouldn't save some life there with some of his equipment.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But that being said, we are getting so tight on life now. And then we are now in the point where almost any one of Ben's major attacks can wipe him out. He might just need it because if there's no point in drawing the combo if your opponent's threatening lethal and you have to block out.
Oh, here comes a Spinal Crush.
Speaking of one of those cards,
Really curious with him pitching the lead the charge there that could have given this go again. What is it, a
he's
pommel?
got to have the pummel. And there it is.
Takes 3, discards a card. Ooh, a Mordred.
And that was also just a kind of unfortunate hand too, because those were all the kind of cards you want to see when you Sonata.
Oh, for sure. Really wondering what's in Chris's arsenal right now. I think it's definitely a piece to the puzzle here.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the important cards. Probably maybe a Mordred. Probably like a Mordred or like a Revel or something like that's going to help boost him during the turn. But clearly not Sonata, because if he had it, he'd be popping it. I think it's Ben's turn now. Yeah, because he just had to block out.
We're digging again to see what tools we can get. 2 floating. Command and Conquer and Pummel would be really good here.
One of the unique aspects of this particular matchup with this Viserai deck is even though Viserai is only at 6, this game is still definitely not one for Ben yet.
Oh, absolutely.
And his third in Lightning Strike. Can't complain about that. Oh, and just no hesitation at all, blocking it out. And then just for 4 damage, no frostbite. Curious what's in Ben's hand.
Very well could be a pummel. I mean, we've seen a red and a yellow. We have
That would
two
be
floating.
amazing right now.
I
And he
mean,
does have the 2, or here's the question, is it actually 2 floating? Or yep, it is actually 2 floating.
oh, absolutely. So,
I have a sneaking suspicion Chris is probably asking himself the same question right now.
oh, absolutely. Anytime a Guardian player has two floating and a card in hand, it's definitely time to ask yourself, am I going to get pummeled?
Yeah. Have you made room for the good word of pummel today? Now the funny thing is Ben might not have anything here, and he might just happen to have the 2 floating from the way digging with crown works in this situation.
Oh, for sure.
And he's gonna say either you got it or you don't, and he didn't.
Oh, more rune chants coming in.
I have a sneaking suspicion we might see some more attack reactions getting into the meta, because really just the psychology around it and just forcing through that little bit of extra damage.
Oh, for sure.
We might even just be getting to the point where Chris might just have to abandon the OTK model and just cash in those rune chants, because 5 life is definitely not the place you want to be against a Guardian deck.
We're going to dig. Looks like he likes what he drew. We got an endless winter number 2 coming.
Yep, I can't blame him for that. And with the Ice Fuse.
Oh, and then we're going to get a channel at the end of the turn. Oh, potentially.
Or, well, yeah, no go again on that one. But he'll probably throw that, probably keep it in hand. And then pop it out next turn, which just doesn't show Chris he's got a lot ahead of him. And this is especially an awkward spot against Endless Winter because he has to block it. I wonder if we're going to finally see the equipment.
Oh, potentially. Chris is deep in the tank trying to figure out how to get through this turn. Wonder if he didn't draw Sonata and is thinking about popping it here. Seems awkward though.
Yeah, and really Endless just gives him a almost no-win scenario. Now that being said, I think the secret around this is if he had the Sonata in his hand, he could still get away with playing it to get through all those frostbites from blocking because of the way cost addition and reduction works. The addition happens before the reduction. So if he did decide to play the Sonata, he could just he would be looking at 2 less cards, but it would clear his field of the frostbites. Though actually, now I think about it, I actually that would not work that way because he would still need to activate Scalata first.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so here comes some blocking equipment.
And Chris now has his shirt on his head. Yeah, Chris definitely has a lot of decisions here because if you look at his deck, he's down to 18 cards. He's starting to get fatigued out. Doesn't really have a lot of life to play with. He's almost in the position where a hammer can take him out.
Oh, for sure, especially seeing two different colored pummels in the deck. He now
And
has to respect that.
that is a question also, because if the other card in Ben's hand is a pummel, he could just pitch the Channel Lake Frigid and push it through for the win. Because that on-hit effect definitely would not do Chris any favors, especially if you manage to get Frostbites and the on-hit. Because it would trigger at least off of Scalata, it would trigger off of his shoes, and trigger off of Rosetta Thorn.
Probably just not the card he wanted to see this turn.
Yeah, and I think it might. Is this the third one we're seeing from Ben, or is this the second one?
I believe it's number 2.
Okay. Yeah, Ben's been very good at pressuring really notable on-hit effects and making sure to keep that disruption on. He's checking his discard, so I'm thinking he might have the Sonata in hand. He might be saying, what is left in my deck?
Very tense while we wait to find out what's happening here.
I think right now we're seeing one of the key components of just how Oldhim as a hero tends to affect this game. Locally, we were wondering why Oldhim took so long to play, because realistically he's a relatively simple character, but we found that the thing that tends to draw matches out with Oldhim is less of his own play time, but the amount of decisions he makes your opponent make.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so it looks like he's going to take some damage with the on-hit, and he's going to take the 3 Frostbites, or maybe Ben's informing him right now they'd take 3 Frostbites. Yeah, I think that's the conversation that's happening right now. Oh,
Oh my
and he's got
goodness.
the pummel. Oh, that is the worst of all worlds, and it's the red pummel. So that pumps up to 12. He's blocking 6.
So he takes 6 and dies unless he has a
Yeah,
defense reaction.
Unless he's got react. Yep, I'm thinking that might be it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think that's it.
game.
Yeah, that's game.
Very well played.
Well played.
Really unfortunate he didn't get a chance to pop Scalita one last time in this format, and
I think this game really showed how like Endless Winter is a card that kind of got written off by Oldhim players for a while, and it was an all-star this game.
Oh, absolutely.
Now he's digging to see when the Sonata was.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. That was a really intense game.
Yeah, great time, great game. I gotta know though what was in his arsenal.
And maybe we'll never know. You're gonna flip it.
Come on, one more.
Flip it. All right. Well, that'll be it for us in the coverage booth, and we will catch you on the next game.
Yep.
And we're out.
All right, cool. Hope I did an okay job.
Oh, dude.